Hello and welcome back to the Future Life. Well, last week we went through Genesis 7 and the start of the flood. So this week we're going to look at the beginning of Genesis 8 and, well, the end of the flood. So, just like last week, we'll look at Accordance Bible software here with the English Standard Version on the right and Spanish on the left. So let us start up here with Genesis 8 and at verse 1. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually at the end. At the end of 150 days, the waters had abated, and in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him any more. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you, all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply on the earth." So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. And that is the end of where we will read this time. So let's look back at some of these verses and look at them a little bit more closely. So we see here back at verse 1 that the end of 150 days the waters had abated. So they had started to recede and stop. And in the 7th month that the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. So note one thing here, that there are many people that have done expeditions to the Mount Ararat, the mountain called Ararat. But we see here that it is the mountains of Ararat. That is a mountain chain that this landed on. And which particular mountain, we don't know. But it would make sense that the ark would run aground on something high first. Because, well, waters are going down, and you're going to have something high first that comes out. And after it landed the ground, we see here in verse 5 that the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. So, not only was the mountain showing where the ark ran aground, but the waters kept going down, that we see more mountains available. Now, remember in our previous week that we said that the water was 15 cubits above the highest mountain. So some might ask, well, Mount Everest is something like 30,000 feet above sea level. Are we saying that the water was that high? It was over 30,000 feet? No, not at all. The mountains were not as tall at that time as they are now. So while Noah was in the ark and on the floodwaters, there would have been a lot of catastrophic erosion and things happening to the ground underneath. And just like we see in local floods now, that they can rip up areas and make canyons and deposit layers of sediment. Say one good example was the aftermath of Mount St. Helens. And that was a relatively small catastrophe compared to, of course, the worldwide flood. And so mountains such as Ararat and Mount Everest are the result of tectonic plates running into each other, and that would have been done during the flood. Again, the Earth was also destroyed in all this. And there are several creation scientists that said there was likely continental sprint. That continents today move at about the rate that your fingernails grow, and that at some point during the flood it would have been moving at meters per second. So very quickly, especially compared to today. So we continue to see that the water decreased. So starting at verse 6. And at the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made and sent forth a raven. So instead of sending out scouting parties, he sent out birds that they could see what was going on. But the raven did not find a place to go. Then next, he sent out a dove to see if the waters had been subsided. But in verse 9, the dove didn't find a place and returned to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. Then he waited another week and sent forth a dove again, and it came out with a freshly plucked olive leaf. So, might wonder how do we get trees already because they would have been ripped up with everything of the earth. Yep. However, there are several different ways that have been proposed that trees could have survived the flood. If you look back again here, we see that the water was not covering the whole earth for an entire year. It was only a couple months, and there would have been a lot of debris floating everywhere that trees and seeds could have easily been transported. And when the land appeared and came back, and some of the debris settled on the land, then it would have planted trees again. And as we see here, a freshly plucked olive leaf. So it had grown enough that they could get leaves. Now again, we don't know if it was a small twig like this or how large it was. So it probably wouldn't have been very big since it was just starting to grow. But from that evidence, we could see that Noah knew the waters were going down. Then after another week, the dove was sent out again, and it did not return anymore. So then here at verse 13, in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. So, 601st year of what? Well, let's go back to Genesis 7. Looking here at Genesis 7, verse 11, we see here, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month. So, when we see the 601st year, this was Noah's age. So he went into the ark when he was 600 years and 2 months old on the 17th day of the month. So I don't know exactly, what month it was, but let's make it easy, and just for ease, we'll say that it was February 17 that he went into the ark. As you see here, this is the day, verse 11. And verse 13, it confirms this is the day that Noah and his family went into the ark. So then, now, almost a year later, we get to, let's say, January 1, the waters had dried up. So this was almost 11 months. And then, verse 14, see, in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. And then God said to exit the ark. So, again, with what we're using, that we'll say it was February 27. So it was basically a year and 10 days that they were in the ark. However, the earth was not flooded for that entire year, as we just read. And again, don't get hung up a certain month. I'm just using that for demonstration. But then we see here, the last couple verses, that God said everything should go out of the ark and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. And that's what they did after their kind. That every creeping thing, every animal, gone after their kind. And that is now what we see today, that all these kinds that came off the ark have now differentiated into all the different species that we see today. So the cat kind is, lions, tigers, domestic cats, and so on. And same with bears, horses, cattle, and all those. So this was the year of the flood, and now afterward, God gave specific promises to Noah and his descendants, which are us today. But that is where we will pick up next week and look at what God has promised Noah and us. But until then, thank you for watching, and bye for now.